From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. Heavily armed Canadian police mobilized against camps in West Sudan, the territory that was set up to prevent a gas pipeline from being built on indigenous territory. Local reports say that up to 13 people were detained. According to the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, the indigenous communities cannot be forcibly removed from their territory. The pipeline project presents a threat to plants, animals, and communities in the area.
With the injunction because they didn't hear our side and we have too much to lose behind on this territory. We don't want them to try and say that we can be in the reservation and just stay in my buildings here, but they can destroy the rest of my territory.
In Chile, the Interior Minister Andrés Chadwick has acknowledged that he was informed of Catrillanca on the day of his murder, Camilo Catrillanca, the Mapuche member. He also recognized that the 24-year-old wasn't carrying a weapon and that there was no confrontation. However, he claimed a poor telephone connection meant he couldn't hear correctly.
Efforts to repair the image of the police forces are apparent. Together with the Interior Ministry, it is President Piñera himself who heads the Senate's Security Commission, which reviews the modernization of the institution. The press have also revealed that the former head of the Araucana region, General Mauro Victoriano, legally declared that on the day of Catrillanca's murder, he himself informed Minister Chadwick that the young Mapuche was unarmed and that there was no confrontation.
Unfortunately, there was a poor line with interference. Therefore, General Victoriano may have said what he says, but it wasn't received properly.
It's a deep concern for the Mapuche people, which has to do with the efforts to criminalize the fight to recover territory and inconsistent version of events.
I never had any information as to whether the people that were in that tractor, Camilo Catrillanca and the child, were or were not armed.
On November 15th, a day after the murder, the minister said something different.
According to what we've been told, they had to face shootings from different locations, producing an exchange of gunshots between police forces and the people who had guns.
The former Sub-Secretary of the Interior, Felipe Arboe, made the same declaration 11 years ago about the murder of the Mapuche Matias Catrileo, a version that later was refuted.
In that confrontation, according to police information, the officers were under fire, and therefore they responded in kind.
False confrontations were used during the dictatorship and have been perfected during the democracy, as seen in Operation Hurricane, in which the second government of Michelle Bachelet tried to prove a coordination between Mapuche leaders from Chile and Argentina with events made up by the then Secretary of the Interior, Mahmoud Alewi.
It is this government making the conditions for an even more repressive government in the future. We're talking about Mahmoud Aloui, who in inverted commas was a socialist, a man who grew up in the dictatorship to confront the power of domination and who strangely put what he learned into the service of preserving the interests of the powerful and against the Mapuche community.
Declarations that today seem prescient because even after the scandalous Operation Hurricane took place against the Mapuche people, Sebastián Piñera's government seemed to want to keep using the technique, going as far as extradition from Argentina.
In Peru, the Attorney General Pedro Chavarry has said that he will resign on Tuesday. In a statement published on social media, Chavarry said he will present his resignation despite the fact that he has been a Democrat with an impeccable trajectory, according to the statement. This happens just as the Parliament is discussing a bill which could allow for the dismissal of the Attorney General from his position. Thousands of people protested beginning on the 1st of January, demanding Chavarry's resignation after he dismissed and then reinstated two prosecutors who were investigating the Odebrecht corruption scandal in the country. And despite weeks of massive protests against corruption, the Peruvian Congress refuses to declare the prosecutor's office in a state of emergency. Social organizations say that a new wave of protests can be expected.
The Popular Force and American Popular Revolutionary Alliance parties have joined forces to stop the Peruvian Congress from debating a bill to declare the Public Prosecutor's Office in a state of emergency, which would facilitate the dismissal of the country's Attorney General, Pedro Chavarry. He is accused of corruption and ethical misconduct. However, the Lima Bar Association has suspended Chavarry for 4 months.
We aren't obstructing anything like the formation of new congressional benches or other initiatives, Mr. President. Rather, we are only acting in the belief of democratic values and with respect for the Constitution and the law.
The debate had to be postponed without scheduling a date for the future, as supporters of ex-President Alberto Fujimori left the Congress, leaving the chamber with too few members to make a meaningful vote.
What the Fujimori supporters are looking for is to continue protecting Mr. Chavarry, as he doesn't want to take a decision against the Public Prosecutor's Office, despite so many irregularities.
They are not listening to the citizens. They continue shamefully protecting Chavarry.
The progressive congressional benches keep finding ways to boycott the Odebrecht investigation.
They don't want the investigations necessary in Peru in order to sentence these people. And we're talking about various former presidents. We're talking about representatives in Congress now and before who would have received money.
In the streets, Peruvians are also rejecting the attitude of Fujimori supporters and their allies. As is their way, these parties cover up corruption. They want to cover up the tracks of corruption in our country, and the people don't think that they should be allowed.
All of them cover for each other. They're watching each other's backs.
Whilst waiting for President Vizcarra to begin proceedings to dissolve the Congress, social organizations are preparing for more days of protests.
In other news, Venezuela has reached an investment deal with the French company Morel & Prom, aimed at transforming the state-owned company PDVSA. In a press conference, President Nicolás Maduro spoke about the deal and how this will benefit the country.
We are still defining the details of the investment. Venezuela needs to know we are working full-time to transform PDVSA. We're looking into financial and technological capacity of this company that is known worldwide and has a lot of experience. Their representatives know that in Venezuela they will find the legal security they need.
And Venezuelan Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza met with the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Gaston Brown, on Monday to discuss their bilateral ties under the framework of ALBA and Petrocaribe. Our colleague Sayini Gray spoke to our correspondent, Hema Gandhi, on the latest details.
So what can you tell us more about the meeting between Prime Minister Brown and the Venezuelan Foreign Minister?
Well, the meeting took place this morning. It lasted about 30 minutes, told. It held up the Foreign Minister's request. We know he's been here many times before, of course. The OAS resolution, as you mentioned, it did arrive. Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister, Gaston Brown, reiterated that long stance that the Twin Island nation will not support any action that goes against Venezuela. If there's any resolution that condemns Venezuela, Antigua and Barbuda will either abstain or vote against it. The other thing that came up, they also discussed the inauguration of President Maduro, of course, this Thursday. The Prime Minister said he would like to be there. If not, then his Foreign Minister will represent him. Of course, a welcome show of support in light of the stance of the United States, Canada and a number of other countries that we've seen recently, who of course have been demanding that Maduro hands over power.
Now, Gemma, Antigua and Barbuda has been very supportive of Venezuela, while two members of CARICOM, Guyana and St. Lucia, which are also part of the Lima group, says it will not recognize President Maduro's second term. Do you think that's likely to generate tension within CARICOM?
Well, it's an interesting question. At the General Assembly vote in June last year, CARICOM countries were very divided on the question of their support for Venezuela. It's doubtful individual countries will have altered that stance. Many small islands, of course, have been very grateful recipients of discounted oil from Venezuela and the accompanying social programs too. They won't be turning their back on a friend now. Some of the larger countries have previously voted in favour of suspending Venezuela from the OAS. Barbados, Guyana, Jamaica, and equally to this region, they're very reluctant to be seen to be acting against the United States. That, of course, is where most of the tourism dollars come from. Likely many will abstain once again. Regarding conflict, there's generally an understanding among the Caribbean nations. They enjoy very close ties. I'd say it's unlikely to cause a lasting rift.
And on Monday, Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez announced that President Miguel Díaz-Canel will lead the Cuban delegation, which will travel to Caracas for the January 10th inauguration of Nicolás Maduro. On Twitter, the minister reiterated Cuba's support for Venezuela and its legitimately elected government. Guatemala is ending the work of the UN-backed Anti-Corruption Commission in the country 8 months earlier than expected. The International Commission Against Impunity sought to prosecute President Jimmy Morales over illegal financing allegations during his election campaign 2 years earlier. The investigations also targeted members of the president's family. In August, Morales announced he would not renew the body's mandate due to expire on September this year. Foreign Minister Sandra Jovel announced the latest decision after meeting with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. More stories coming up. We'll be back.
An occasion to enjoy the cultural diversity that defines our South American essence. Come along to find out the story behind these personalities, traditions, and artistic expressions that unite us as a whole. Real Lives, Friday, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Several central states in Mexico are facing fuel shortages as the government tries to combat fuel theft. Gas stations in the city of Guadalajara were closed on Sunday, including those operated by the state-owned company Pemex. The shortages follow the closure of a pipeline in the central state of Guanajuato and the use of tankers to transport fuel. President Andrés Manuel López Obrador has vowed to return law and order to the nation.
How is it petty theft if we're talking about the robbery of more than 1,000 pipelines a day, of 3,962 gallons from each pipeline? How did they distribute all that stolen gasoline? Well, there was an attitude of a total complicity on the part of Pemex. Now we have a rule of law. There is no more rule of the crooked. So now they are pressuring us, thinking that they'll beat us. They don't want to arm wrestle with us, because the law will win out and justice will win out.
And the Mexican president has also announced plans to create a new free economic zone along its entire border with the United States. Our correspondent Pablo Pérez brings us the details.
On the occasion of his visit to the border town of Tijuana, Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador stressed the importance of the creation of a free economic zone. He said the planned zone between the U.S. and Mexico would be one of the biggest free economic zones on the American continent. It would include various economic measures such as the reduction of value-added tax and of the income tax, and also a substantial increase of the minimum wage. He added that for those who are against these measures, The initial economic loss would be compensated in the long term as the businesses start to prosper. This free economic zone will stretch from the U.S. state of California and the Mexican state of Baja California at the Pacific coast to the U.S. state of Texas and the Mexican state of Tamaulipas at the Gulf of Mexico.
Pablo Perez from Mexico. Now we go to Ecuador, where President Lenín Moreno has asked the United Nations to conduct a special audit of 5 oil projects built during Rafael Correa's presidency. Denise Herrera explains what they found.
During a long press conference at the Hydrocarbons Ministry, the Ecuadorian government detailed the main results of the special audit of 5 energy projects, which include the Esmeraldas and Pacific refineries, pipeline Pascuales Cuenca, maritime terminal Monteverde, and a natural gas plant in Bajo Alto on the Ecuadorian coast. The audit found that $2.5 billion have been lost in energy projects.
These audits have identified a disastrous evaluating system. In each of the 5 projects, we found dramatic high costs. There was no coherence between the first budget and the final one. There is overpricing in the contracts, which are not justified. The companies that built these projects were chosen randomly, with no previous process.
The auditing revealed that Esmeralda's refinery sub-upgrade works worth $2.23 billion, well above an initial budget of $7,054 million. Also, the Refinería del Pacific budgets reflected cost 23% higher than the original stated, and conflicts of interest were detected. However, the Hydrocarbons Minister confirmed Ecuador isn't looking to turn to the private sector to activate these projects, and said that the government will need $6,050 million to continue with them.
The government has no intention of privatizing these projects, but what we do want, if possible, is to outsource the administration of these projects. They will still belong to the state.
Energy experts criticized the report and said the national media outlets and no energy sectors have used the name of the United Nations and the international organization that conducted the audits, as President Moreno had said. But the experts expressed that it was clear that the 3 private companies violated the law by publishing the audit report without including the testimony of the persons who worked on the energy projects.
They hired private companies to do these audits. This is just a show to divert the people's attention. Why? Because the government has increased fuel prices. But not only that, also the state's state budget for 2019 is absolutely underfinanced.
Regarding to the maritime terminal Monteverde, the government ended up paying $3,071 million compared to the original budget of $2,050 million. Also, there was $36 million in overruns related to the construction of a natural gas plant in Bajo Alto, where $76 million was invested in infrastructure for a plant that only operated at 50% capacity. Former President Rafael Correa, well as other members of the Citizen Revolution movement, have rejected the audits, saying that this is a tactic of the current president to distract attention from the recent economic measures implemented by his government.
In other news, a well-preserved fossil of a prehistoric deer has been found in Argentina. The fossil includes almost 70% of the animal, including the spine, extremities, and an almost complete set of teeth. Until now, only fragmentary remains of this species of deer had been found. Further tests will reveal the exact fossil's age, although the species is from the Pleistocene, an era from 2.5 million years ago until 12,000 years ago. In 2018, food prices in Argentina rose by 64%, the biggest price rise since 1991. What has caused this increase, and how is it affecting the daily lives of Argentinians? And what can we expect in 2019?
According to a report from the National University of Avellaneda, the increase in food prices has been 15% higher than general inflation in Argentina.
During 2018, there was roughly 100% devaluation. That's a lot. And inside a productive structure that's strongly influenced by the price of the currency, in all the links of the value chain, basic products such as food and other necessary products are strongly determined by the price of the US dollar.
Some of the foods that rose the most are the potato by 244%, common wheat flour by 186%, eggs by 118%, and noodles by 107%.
These are products that cannot possibly be substituted, and their purchase cannot be postponed. This implies a fall of purchasing power offered by salaries. We are measuring in different and alternative measures of income. The average pensioner's purchasing capacity has fallen by 1.6% with regards to basic products. The universal benefit for each child has fallen by 6.6%, and the minimum wage in this economy has fallen by a total of 10.2%.
The price increases directly impact the eating habits of Argentinians.
We are eating one meal during the day and in the evening have a little cup of milk, tea or coffee.
Feeding yourself costs a lot. I'm 60, and I think this is the first time that I've been struggling to find money to eat.
Can you believe that I go to the greengrocers and I buy 3 potatoes and a small lettuce because I can't afford anything else? I can't pay for more, and I need to feed myself because I'm insulin dependent.
Economists foresee that the effective devaluation in 2018 will continue to impact the price of foods throughout the coming year.
Now let's go to Japan. Former chairman of car company Nissan, Carlos Ghosn, has declared his innocence in a Tokyo court. He said that he was wrongly accused of financial misconduct. The presiding judge said that Ghosn was at a flight risk and that he may conceal evidence if not kept in detention. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has arrived in the Chinese capital, Beijing. He is visiting at the invitation of the Chinese President Xi Jinping from January 7th through the 10th. The DPRK leader visited 3 times last year, and his visit may lead to a 4th summit with Xi.
Chairman Kim Jong-un's visit is at the General Secretary of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China and President Xi Jinping's invitation. As everybody knows, this visit is part of high-level exchanges as China and North Korea are friendly neighbors, and this is an important part of our tradition of friendship.
We're taking one last break, but stay with us.
Telesur brings you special interviews with social and political personalities. Monday, from Washington. Tuesday, from Mexico. Wednesday, from Caracas. Thursday, from Quito. Friday, from Havana. Analysis about our continent's reality. Weekdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Emergency services in Pretoria, South Africa are treating dozens of victims following a 2-train collision. At least 2 people have been killed. A search and rescue operation is ongoing. An investigation into the case of the crash is already underway. Several Boko Haram combatants have been killed in airstrikes by the Nigerian Air Force in the northeast of the country. A statement by the Air Force said that the air raids followed the combatants' attempts to overrun military camps in the town of Damasak. Boko Haram militants have increased their attacks on military camps in recent months. The government of Gabon has announced the death of 2 soldiers involved in Monday's attempted coup d'etat. A 5th military officer has also been apprehended after initially eluding the security officers deployed to arrest him. Earlier, the 5 officers stormed the state radio station and asked the people to oust ailing President Ali Bongo. The Bongo family has ruled Gabon for over 5 decades.
Sitôt informé de la situation.
As soon as the government was informed of the situation, measures were put into place efficiently to neutralize and arrest members of the political group. During this operation, 2 insurgents died. The others, including Lieutenant Ondo Obiang Kelly, were arrested and then presented to the Prosecutor General.
Ethiopia and Eritrea have formally opened a border crossing between the 2 countries. The ceremony was graced by the Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and the Eritrean President Isaias Afwerki. This shows an effort to restore ties since signing a peace agreement last year. The agreement is an attempt to end 2 decades of hostility which simmered on after the brutal war between 1998 and 2000, which left 80,000 people dead. The French government wants to draft a new law to punish undeclared protests. The new measure aims at toughening punishment for people who participate in riots and clamp down on the wearing of masks at demonstrations. This comes in the wake of anti-government protests which have rocked France for the past 7 weeks. It is believed the tough punishment is meant to deter people from participating in the Yellow Vest protests around the country.
The government is in favor of our law being amended. This will allow us to punish those who do not respect this obligation to declare their participation in protests. Today, this is fine. Tomorrow, it must become a crime. We need to make sure it is the civil responsibility of the rioters to make the reparations and not the taxpayers to pay for the damages done.
At least 6 crew members of a cargo ship have died after their vessel capsized in the Black Sea off the coast of Turkey. Rescue operations with helicopters rushed to the scene about 80 kilometers off the Turkish coast. The ship had a total of 13 crew members on board, mostly Ukrainian citizens. The ship was operated under the Panamanian flag and was reportedly transporting coal from Russia to Turkey. With that, we come to the end of this news brief, but this and many other stories, you can read them from our website at telesurenglish.net. For our viewers in Africa, we are on Starsat channel 461 in South Africa and 539 in Nigeria, and we're on social media as well. For Telesur English, Carla Gonzalez, thank you for watching.